Bulavinaka and welcome to Gold FM's Speak Your Mind. I'm your host Dion Davu, and with us today in studio, our guest on the show, representing the Fiji Human Resources Institute, is their president, Mr. Kameli Mbatiweti. Mr. Mbatiweti, thank you very much for being with us today, and of course, we thank you for taking the time to, appear on the show.
You're most welcome, and thank you for the invitation.
You're welcome. And yes, moving into our questions, can you please tell us just a little bit about yourself and the role that you play at the Fiji Human Resources Institute?
Kameli Mbatiweti, and I'm from Choma, Nadeva, Kandavu. Started my career in human resources in 1997, June 1997, and so I'll be 20 years in the HR function for the past 20 years. And I'm currently the president of the Fiji Human Resources Institute.
And Mr. Mbatiweti, when was the Fiji Human Resources Institute established and why was it established?
It was established in 2005 by a couple of HR practitioners led by Mr. Balbir Singh, who was the immediate past president. And the objective at that time was to be the national leader in promoting human resources with a view of increasing the level of productivity and improving on the performance in the human resources function. And so that's how we started in 2005. And so now, 12 years later, we're still in the business of promoting that vision.
So prior to 2005, there wasn't any institute like Fiji Human Resources Institute, or was there? Or
They had one that was formed, and it did not perform, and it became defunct. And so we had to step in and then ask them to deregister themselves because the government don't allow more than an institute in different functional areas. And so we had to ask them to step aside, and they agreed to step aside, allowing us to step in and now provide that function for anyone who's interested in human resources.
And of course, this is FHRI helps individuals and organizations develop human resources strategies to effectively manage their business.
Absolutely.
I see. And does the FHRI partner with government, private, or even international organizations in the course of its work?
Yes, we Fiji Commerce Employers Federation and Fiji Human Resources Institute are partners. So what we do is we work in collaboration with the Fiji Commerce Employers Federation. FCEF has a HR council, and so the HR council there works very closely with FHRI. And if there's something that their HR council is doing, FHRI tells all of its members, which is approximately 200 members. And if FHRI is doing something, FCEF tells its members also. And so there's that collaboration. In fact, we are tenants in the FCEF office right now at the Employees Hub, 42 Gorrie Street. That is where we are currently. And so we work very closely with FCEF and also with the Australian Human Resources Institute. We are members of the Australian Human Resources Institute, which is short for ARI. ARI is short for Australian Human Resources Institute. And if you wanted to become a member of ARI, you'd pay 300 and something Australian dollars. If you wanted to join through FHRI, you only pay 150 Fijian dollars in addition to the 100 and a bit dollars that you pay as your annual membership. So when you put the annual membership of becoming a member of FHRI and the ARI membership, it's much cheaper than if you went directly to ARI. So we're grateful to Australian Human Resources Institute for allowing us to collaborate with us and allowing us that special membership fee for our members.
So it would be safe to say that the Australian Human Resources Institute sort of like has helped the Fiji Human Resources Institute to get to where it is today. I mean, of course, they must just share with you strategy planning and those sorts of things in order to help FHRI develop its plans. It's very interesting to hear. And this partnership, of course, from the beginning, from 2005.
It came about a couple of years after that. The immediate past president, Mr. Balbir Singh, was very instrumental and influential in getting that relationship going. And so with ARI, they have a lot of HR, very HR-specific courses that they provide. And in the past, before that collaboration came in, before we worked together, they would go through individuals and provide those training. And so now, after Balbir Singh had organized that agreement to be signed with them, they only come through FHRI now to provide human resources specific training. And all their trainings are all Australian accreditation. And therefore, it's of a high value. And it's things in the human resources function that are meaningful for HR practitioners in Fiji and for any business, whether you be a farmer, you be an entrepreneur, whatever you are, it's applicable right across the board.
I see. Thank you for that, Mr. Mbatiweti. Of course, with us in studio today from the Fiji Human Resources Institute, their president, Mr. Kameli Mbatiweti, is talking about the institute and its functions and, of course, the plans that they have for the future as well. Moving on with our questions, Mr. Mbatiweti, as an organization, at this moment in time, what is the Fiji Human Resources Institute main objective?
Our main objective, as I said earlier, is to be the national leader in the human resources function. And obviously our objective is to increase the level of productivity and also improve on performance in human resources. Our vision is to promote human resources, promote excellence in the function of human resources. And unfortunately, many years ago, when it used to be called personnel, the transition or the move from personnel to human resources was a hard one for some organizations to accept. And so what happened is they called their people human resources, but they were still treating them as personnel. And so the transition or the move across for some people were a bit difficult, some companies. Those companies that have moved across easily and quickly are now reaping the benefits. See, in the manufacturing industry, the engineers turn a screwdriver or a spanner and the machine works. The accountant would tweak a couple of numbers and a profit is determined. In the human resources function, you don't have a screwdriver or a spanner or something to tweak.
You're dealing with individuals.
You're dealing with human beings. And therefore, those who are still in the old personnel mindset are the ones that are suffering. They are not enjoying the benefits of moving into human resources. And
the inability to change is somewhat hindering them.
Exactly. And I think some of them change is inevitable. You can't avoid it, but they prefer staying there and not moving out into a new one. And so our role in Fiji Human Resources Institute is to guide them, assist them. If they need assistance, our operations manager is Sonam Krishnil at the Fiji Human Resources Institute, a very well-rounded person. Happy for her. If she cannot handle it, she will pass it to one of the executive committee members, and there are 9 of us who are executive committee members. Some of us are managers, HR in our different organizations. Some of us are general managers, very senior people who have been in the business for 10 to 25 years in human resources, so very experienced people. You know, one wise man once said, as iron sharpens iron, so must we sharpen one another. And so HR Institute, Fiji HR Institute, that's our ultimate role, is to sharpen those who are blunt in the function of HR and help them to become better at what they're doing, go after excellence and all that stuff.
Thank you very much for that answer, Mr. Mbatiweti. With us today in studio on Gold FM's Speak Your Mind, we have from the Fiji Human Resources Institute, their president, Mr. Kameli Mbatiweti. I'm Dion Davu, you're on Gold FM's Speak Your Mind, and we'll have more after the break. Bulavanaka, and welcome back to Gold FM's Speak Your Mind. I'm your host, Dion Davu, and joining us on the show today, we have from the Fiji Human Resources Institute to tell us more about their work and what they do, their president, Mr. Kameli Mbatiweti. Mr. Matiweti, once again, thank you very much for making the time to be with us here today. And moving back into our questions. Now, what sort of services does the Fiji Human Resources Institute offer?
Thank you, Dion. One of the first things that we provide is the awareness sessions. And so in the awareness sessions, we have training programs that we provide for our members to try and upskill them, give them knowledge. And obviously, knowledge without practice sometimes is difficult. And so what we do is after we provide training, a month or two afterwards, we provide a Talanoa session. And so in the Talanoa session, the members who attended, and whether they are members of FHRI or not, as long as they came and attended our training, or they're a HR practitioner, or they probably are a CFO, FC, or CEO, we still welcome them with open arms. And what we allow them to do is to come and listen during our Talanoa sessions, and we have different topics, and therefore what we do is we ask questions of our members. What are some of the things that is a bit of a difficult situation for you in your workplace that you would like us to address in a Talanoa session? And so when they give us feedback, we pick one of the ex-coms who has gone through that session, or what we do is we just come and we talk about our experience in those areas. And that allows the members, now that they've gone through the training, they've heard an experience, and so the next step for them is to now venture out into that new area.
And apply what they've learned.
And if they struggle with that, we are always on hand to assist them. I got a call this morning from one HR practitioner who said, this is an issue that our company is faced with. We've got this welder who we got in a year ago, and this welder is incompetent. And so what do we do? Are we allowed to proceed straight into termination, or what do you suggest? So I had to take the person through the process. I said, there, in everything in human resources, it's process. You can't jump the gun, you can't shortcut. You must remember you're dealing with a human being.
There's steps to follow.
Absolutely. And so I say, these are the steps. So we gave advice. So I was talking as a member of the Fiji Human Resources Institute. And I said, when you meet with a person, if you need my assistance, I can dial in. So you have a room like this. You have a discussion with a person, and you allow me to dial in. And so I can assist you. I will let you do all the talking. And when I see that you are struggling, you don't have the knowledge to pursue it further, I will step in and assist you in the process until we get to the end of it. And so what we usually do, we allow for that. And then at the end of it, we ask the person, the HR person, how did you feel about doing that session? And most of them will say, wow, that was a difficult one. And we give them our side of our story. And I usually tell them, 19 years ago, I was in your shoes, and I felt the way you felt today. And so it's a journey. And I said, 1,000 miles is but one step. You have to take that first step and be brave and move out. And so not only do we provide advice, we also provide counseling, we provide coaching, all with the view and the objective to promote excellence in human resources. At the end of the day, we said we want to be the leaders in human resources, and therefore we're going all out to make sure that we provide good leadership to our members. And even those who are not members, they're most welcome to call us. We'll still give advice to anyone who wants advice.
Thank you for that, Mr. Mbatiweti. And yes, we've been talking about the Fiji Human Resources Institute, and of course, when it was established and why. And now moving on to our next question, very basically for our listeners and our viewers at home, what exactly is human resources or human resources management?
Okay, good question. Thank you, Dion. Human resources management is the managing of the people, the human beings who are the human resources. And so managing the human resources, as I had indicated earlier, the engineer has a spanner or a screwdriver, and he tweaks it this way, tweaks it the other way. The machine reacts differently to the different tweaks. The accountant would use numbers to tweak it this way, and then the profit is determined. But for us at Human Resources, It's dealing with every individual, one case at a time. No two people. There are approximately 7.5 billion people in this earth right now. And all 7.5 billion are different. They're very different. And so we do not apply the one-size-fits-all criteria. We ensure that we treat them as individuals. We manage them with respect. We manage them, and what we do is we try to encourage them at a time. We try to keep them engaged. And so good human resources organizations, they also to try and to check on the pulse to see how is the human resources tagging along, they would perform engagement surveys, annual engagement surveys. And so in the annual engagement survey, it talks about stay, strive. Strive meaning I'm going that extra mile. And so staying or saying, those are three very important things in the human resources function. Do I wish to say good things about my organization? Do I wish to stay in this organization, or is it when I wake up in the morning, I say, I just put my head back and said, I don't look forward to going to work today. That's a staying problem. Saying, if they don't want to say good things, that's a saying problem. And so strive is, you know what? I've done everything that I am asked to do, and I don't want to strive anymore.
Should I put in a bit more effort or not?
Absolutely. So an engaged person is one who will always say good things, who always tell others, stay. There's no reason to leave. And they will always encourage others to strive. And so the manager's work is easy because you have ambassadors. You have people who now believe in the vision, believe in what the company stands for, and they give their life to the company. I sometimes, while walking around, sometimes while talking with some people, I ask them simple questions. How's work? And you can see it in their face and the words that they say, their body language. It tells you volumes about their organization and all that stuff. You know, someone told me just recently, our HR department is called Human Remains. That's shocking. That's shocking because you're human resources. You're managing one of the most important things in the business. Because without human beings, you cannot start a business. Without human beings, you cannot make a profit. Without human beings, you cannot sell your product. So they're the most important assets. People say the customer is the most important asset. I believe it's the human beings who's working for you. You look after the human beings who are the human resources. They look after your customers for you. And so when people say our customer is the most important person here, how is your internal customer? Are you looking after them as you are looking after your external customer? And so that's where some companies get it wrong. You know, and I would strongly encourage those companies that have got it wrong, please get it right, get your people, work well with them, and they will look after your business.
Thank you, Mr. Mbatiweti. Of course, with us in studio today on Gold FM's Speak Your Mind, we have the president of the Fiji Human Resources Institute, Mr. Kameli Mbatiweti. Do stay with us. We'll have more after the break. Bulvanaka, and welcome back to Gold FM's Speak Your Mind. I'm your host, Dion Davu, and with us in studio, joining us is, Mr. Kameli Mbatiweti. He is the president of the Fiji Human Resources Institute, which is an institute, striving towards being the best in the nation as far as productivity and human resources is concerned. He's with us in studio. Earlier on, we were talking about human resources or human resources management. And yes, we're moving on with our questions now. And very simply, Mr. Mbatiweti, why is there a need to practice effective human resources management? I mean, why is there a need to do it? Do we practice it in the hopes that our business will be better, or is there some other specific reasons?
Like I said earlier, the most important asset in the business is the human beings in your business. You treat them as human beings. They are your human resources. And therefore, as you look after your people well, they look after your business, they grow your business. And, for example, I just heard now FHL has made a huge improvement on their profit line
Yes.
I think it was one of the quarters. Now, that did not come about because one man was sitting at the top making all the decisions and all that stuff. That came about because everybody, all 1,000 employees in the business, moved the business forward. And so, because they have good human resources practices in that organization, that the human beings or the human resources help drive that business forward and achieve huge profits. And so the companies that are struggling with profits, the business that we are running today, whatever business that is today, 2017 is a tough business, is a tough year. And so I remember many years ago, Forbes put out an article where they said, when the business is tough, organizations go training. Usually businesses, when business is tough, they cut human resources spend, they cut training spend.
Yes, that's a trend I have noticed.
Yeah, no more conferences and all. That is wrong. Forbes conducted a survey and said,
this is Forbes, the business magazine.
Business magazine. They said when the going gets tough, the tough go training. Yeah, training and development. And so that's a huge area now in every organization, training and development. In fact, we've moved away now from training and development to capability framework. New word, a new term, but same old guy. And so capability framework is huge. It's about looking at where you are today, where you want to be in 3 to 5 years. And so you establish now, Kameli, I am at this level, and Kameli wants to be the manager or whatever. And so these are the areas to get there. These are your gaps now, Kameli. So let's write a capability framework to take you from here to where you want to be. And so along the journey, you have to put measurements along the journey. So there are achievement.
This is, of course, to gauge yourself, to see your
Exactly.
improvement.
So there are achievement targets, dates by which you have to get it. I'm sure you've heard about the SMART. All plans have to be SMART. It needs to be specific. It needs to be measurable. It needs to be achievable, realistic, and have a time frame. And so when you do all that, you get to your target within the period that you had planned initially. Now, those who remain in personnel, which they just push the paper around, it's a clerical one, they don't do that. And so the organization, if the organization is achieving $250,000 worth of profit every year, they will continue to achieve that amount. Somebody once said, if you continue to do what you've always done, you will continue to... Yeah, exactly. You will get always what you've always received in the past. They ought to now open up their minds, invest in their human resources, invest in their capability framework to grow the people who will grow their business. And so that is why it's very important to manage the human resources function properly. I've only given you just one. That's training and development. There's a whole lot of other things in human resources that needs to be managed.
Mr. Mbatiweti, to put things into a rugby analogy, so to speak, you could say that the human resources element in an organization is sort of like the team masseur in a rugby team. He makes sure that all the players in the team, they're loose and they're fit enough to do their job and, of course, to do what they need to do to make sure that the team wins. So that's one way of putting things.
Exactly.
I see.
Exactly. Yeah. They tend to their personal needs. The masseurs will tend to their personal needs. If there is a part that they need to massage, they will massage that. If there's a part that they need to apply ice or heat or whatever, they'll do all that. And so if you do all that well as a HR practitioner, if the organization allows the HR practitioner to do that, to empower them and not, rule them, every move the HR person does, they're watching and all that stuff. If they are empowered, that organization will fly. They will make profits. They will make announcements like I heard the announcement today. They'll make announcements that say, this is an organization to be watching for. And so, good analogy about the rugby masseuse.
I see. And very quickly, Mr. Mbatiweti, does the size of the organization or type of product or service offered affect whether or not there's a need for human resources management?
I don't think so, Dion. I think every organization, irrespective, you have one employee or you have 1,500 employees, the human resources function is an important aspect of the business.
Regardless of the size of your business.
You get it wrong, your business will feel it. You only have to look at the bottom line when you get your HR wrong. And, people say, oh, we cannot measure the effectiveness of the human resources function. No, you look at the bottom line. And the bottom line will tell you whether the HR function is effective, is supported by CEOs and the board, is given encouragement and all. Otherwise, you just check the bottom line. There's a correlation between good HR organizations and the bottom line.
I see. Thank you for that, Mr. Mbatiweti. Of course, with us today on Gold FM's Speak Your Mind, from the Fiji Human Resources Institute, their president, Mr. Kameli Mbatiweti, telling us more about his organization and the work that they carry out here in Fiji. Do stay with us. We have another 2 segments to come. I am Dion Davu, and this is Gold FM's Speak Your Mind. Bulavanaka, and welcome back to Gold FM's Speak Your Mind. I'm your host, Dion Davu, and with us in studio today from the Fiji Human Resources Institute, their president, Mr. Kameli Mbatiweti. He is here to tell us more about his organization and the work that they carry out, plus their plans for the future. Mr. Mbatiweti, once again, thank you for being with us in studio today. Moving back into our questions. In Fiji, is it compulsory for a business or organization to have a human resources department? What is the official policy on this?
No, it's not necessary. There are a number of organizations that choose not to have a human resources department in their function. And so what it does is it just puts more pressure on the executive team to carry that load. And so you might save $1 million or $2 million, but the pain that comes with that saving far surpasses the savings that you have. If I can just make reference to what Jack Welch said. Jack Welch is the CEO and chairperson, or was the CEO and chairperson of General Electric many years ago, and he wrote the book Winning. Winning is one of his best written articles that he ever wrote. And he said, the closest person that I keep close to my heart is not my CFO, but my CHRO, which is my Chief Human Resources Officer. And so he grew GE from a $11 billion business to something that was in excess of $200 billion. And so he felt that the HR, you have to get the human resources function right. And so if you get the human resources function wrong, you remain in the $11 billion business. And so I think there are companies in Fiji that choose to remain that way. They've always received what they've always received, and I think they feel comfortable with that. I challenge them that if they change their mindset, like what Mr. Ben Ryan said, it's all about the mind. You win the mind, you win the soul, you win the business.
That's exactly
true. So if they change their mindset, then, check their bottom line. The investment in a human resources function is minimal, but the returns far exceed what your investment is. And so I would strongly encourage organizations to start thinking. And if they want to talk to us, we are happy to talk to anyone who would like to talk about that. FHRI is happy to give them advice and to assist them in their journey to move from where they are to where they want to be. And, that journey is forever.
I see. Moving on, Mr. Mbatiweti, now quite a number of our viewers and our listeners on Gold FM as well, they have a business. They are business owners and they employ maybe less than 5 employees. For example, a farmer, a fisherman, maybe a mechanic, or someone who owns a brush cutting business. Yes, so how can these small business owners benefit from having an effective human resources strategy?
That's a good question, Dion. The thing is, most of them think that, like, for example, in the rural area, that if I start a business with only two people, for example, a farmer, and so I get these people to come and work from Monday to Saturday, and they take a day off on Sunday. They are not aware that that the Employment Relations Promulgation 2007 has a provision that for every contract it can be verbal or written, but ultimately it has to be written. And so there's a process to follow, the hours of work. And so if the person works beyond the number of hours specified for the day, for the week, overtime kicks in, and the person is entitled to annual leave, sick leave. So if the person does not come today, and the employer said, well, you did not come today, and so you're without pay and all that stuff. And so under the ERP, you are obligated. What about when it rains and the road floods? The ERP says you as an employer, you are obligated to provide employment. And so any act of God, the employer stands for act of God, because it was not the employee's
Fault that it
fault.
rained.
Exactly. And so those are the small areas that can come and bite the employers. It's their ignorance. You know, someone once said, people suffer for lack of knowledge. Our responsibility as Fiji Human Resources Institute is to provide that knowledge to whoever wants to listen, whoever wants to enter into human resources. We're happy to provide that service for them.
I see. And Mr. Mbatiweti, now you talk about having an effective human resources strategy for a small business. Can you give us a very simple, practical example of an effective human resources strategy? Something very simple.
Okay. One can be training and development. Very simple. So what can happen is an organization is moving or expanding its business, and therefore what they do is that with change, you ought to first communicate what the change is, ensure that the people understand what the change is about. Everybody will want to know what's in it for them, the with them strategy. And so you get buy-in from them, and so you workshop that and say, this is the change we want to do. This is a strategy example I'm giving you. And so it's a rollout. And so you workshop it with your employees, get them to understand what the change is all about, why we do change, and get them to workshop what are their contribution to the what, why, how, where, when, all that stuff. And when they workshop that, and then when they present that, they are telling you as an employer that I'm committed to these things, to make these things happen, so that the function, the company will grow. We are moving into a new area, and this is our commitment to move the business into the new area. That's called a rollout strategy.
I see.
If you have a policy, let's say a code of business conduct, for example, and so if you had a code of business conduct, the strategy is first you need to tell the people, get them to understand what the policy is, get them to workshop, allow them to give you back feedback in their presentation, what they understand about the policy. And so when you listen to their presentation, you should be satisfied that yes, they understand, or no, it looks like I have not delivered the right strategy, and so I need to do it again with these guys. And so you do it until you see you're satisfied they understand, and then get them to sign an acknowledgement form to say, I hereby confirm that I've attended this session on this thing. I was given an opportunity to ask questions, and I hereby write my name and sign my name and date it on the condition that I confirm I've understood, and I will abide by that. Those are very simple strategies. The other strategy is if I was to localize an expatriate position, what's a strategy? And so the strategy is, let's look inward. What is available inwardly? And so the strategy will talk about that. What's available inward? What is the capability of those who are inside the organization now? So the first step is, do we have anyone inside? If the answer is no, let's go outside. If the answer is yes, what do we do with the one inside? And so you proceed using a strategy. And so those are all basic human resources management strategies.
I see. Thank you for that, Mr. Mbatiweti. Yes, with us in studio today from the Fiji Human Resources Institute, their president, Mr. Kameli Mbatiweti, who's here to tell us more about the FHRA and the work that they carry out here in Fiji. Do stay with us. We have one more final segment coming up after the break. Bulvinaka, and welcome back to Gold FM's Speak Your Mind. This is our final segment for the afternoon, and with us in studio, our guest for today, Mr. Kameli Mbatiweti. He is the president of the Fiji Human Resources Institute, and he's here to tell us more about the FHRI and its work. Mr. Mbatiweti, we've reached the final segment, and of course, yes, we've reached the final round of questions as well. Now, earlier this year, you launched the Fiji Human Resources Institute Awards. Tell us more about this and what it means for HR professionals in Fiji.
Thank you, Dion. One of the function of human resources is to recognize good performance. And so therefore, we have now used this award to recognize good human resources practitioners.
And this is nationwide.
This is nationwide. And so we have an award for the senior practitioner, those who have been in HR for 3 to 5 years plus. And for the junior HR practitioners, we have to also include them, those who are just up and coming. What are some of the best practices? What are some of the excellent work that they have contributed in their business? And so these things are endorsed by their CEO. The CEO himself writes all the write-up for their nomination. And then the third award is for the organization. Which organizations in Fiji are practicing best HR practices? And what are some of the best HR practices? The whole objective is when we collate all the information, it will give our members an opportunity to see what are some of the best practices that are happening. And for those who are being nominated, it gets them the opportunity to be recognized for
their hard work.
Very good. For their hard work. And so that is happening on the last Saturday of this month, 28th of May, at the Holiday Inn. And so we've got evaluators who are working to evaluate all the submissions. And then once the evaluators have completed their work, they pass it on to a panel of judges. And so the panel of judges are going to read what the evaluators have done and then make their assessment and decisions, their selection, based on what has been compiled and received.
And of course, this is the first year for the FHRI Awards.
This is the first year, Dion, that we are having it separate from our HR conference.
I see.
In the past, we've always had it on the Saturday. So we've always had Friday, Saturday, our conference, and then in the evening on a Saturday, our gala night, we would have our recognition night. The only problem with that is we have a cocktail before the awards night. And so by the time we start, a couple of the HR practitioners
yes, I can imagine.
Are quite happy at that time. And so it waters down the recognition program. And so our objective of recognizing HR practitioners is lost in that respect. So the committee, executive committee, made a good decision to now have it separately and help them to be recognized for the good work. And so that's why we have moved to what we have done this year. So this year is the first year we're having it separate from what was done previously. Yeah.
Thanks for clearing that up. Yeah. And moving on, you talked about it in our first and second segments about being a member of the FHRI. Now, how does an individual go about becoming a member of the FHRI? And yes, what are the particulars in regards to becoming a member, to joining the Fiji Human Resources Institute?
Thank you, Dion. All they need to do is either call Sonam Krishnil at our office, or they would call her, or they would go into our website, FHRI .org.com, and download the membership application form. And so in the application form, it's got Sonam's email address, it's got what the fees are, and so the fees are very reasonable. We are one of the cheapest in the fee structure. I think it's $150 to join in the first year, and every year thereafter is $100. And so we have different categories from membership to professional membership. And so it means that how many years have you been in human resources? And so you step change up the ladder. We also have for those who are students. And so if you're a student at whichever university, you pay $50 and you become a member and you enjoy all the privileges of becoming a member. If you're currently not a member of FHRI, you can still access us via email. We'll still give you advice. We'll still give you...
And this is free of charge.
Free of charge. And we'll give you support. And then, so that's the two sides of it. If you're a student, you can join at $50. Later on this year, we are going to work with the universities to work out a package for their students. And so there's an opportunity to reduce the $50 further. And just like McDonald's, if you recruit them at a very young age, they will stay with you for a lifetime.
I see.
Yes, and so that's the same thing that we are doing. Yeah?
Well, thank you for that, Mr. Mbatiweti. Seems like we've come to the end of our time here together, and we've got just one more question for you before you do go. Now, as far as human resources management and the FHRI is concerned, what would you like people to know?
HR is very important. I've done this for the last 19 years, 11 months. It's in my system. It's in my blood. I speak human resources here. In fact, I leave home every day with my two sons in the car, and we talk human resources all the way coming down. And when I pick them in the evening, it's human resources going up. And all that I would like them to know is do not be afraid of becoming a human resources practitioner. Like I said earlier, someone once said, my people suffer for lack of knowledge. Gain knowledge. Knowledge is power. And once you get it right in the human resources function, you can do anything in an organization. You can become a CEO. You can become a national sales manager. You can become anything because you have a grasp of the human resources function.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mbatiweti, for those kind words. And of course, we thank you for taking the time out from your busy schedule to be with us here on the program today.
Thank you for the invitation, Dio.
You're most welcome. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, that has been another episode of Gold FM's Speak Your Mind. Our guest for the day from the Fiji Human Resources Institute, their president, Mr. Kameli Mbatiweti. Of course, we'll talk to you again next week. This is Dion Davu on Speak Your Mind. Goodbye for now.